Donald Trump Jr., 42, on the on hold or piped up here.
Bringing him in
is
now.
Bringing in now. He's got a new book, which is called Liberal Privilege, and we'll talk to him about that. But I have some other questions for Donald Jr. as well. Hey, Donald Jr., good to see you.
Good to see you. How's it going, Adam?
Good. Say hi to Bald Brian and Gina Grad.
Hi, Bald Brian. How are you?
How's it going?
Gina.
Hi there.
I'll start off with an out-of-the-box question for you that you're uniquely qualified to answer. I was informed yesterday that I was going to interview your father at the White House in about a week's time. And,
oh, wow.
And I thought to myself, by the way, just so you know how my family rolls, I said to my twin 14-year-old son, I'm going to interview the president of the United States. And he goes, can I go? And I said to my daughter, you want to go? And she goes, no way. So that's kind of a little microcosm of our country inside of my home.
It's on brand.
It happens. It happens.
But I thought to myself...
We're more divided than ever, Adam.
I know. I mean, it's literally taking place in my living room. But I thought to myself... And this may be insulting, so I want to run it past you first.
Oh, boy.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? No,
a national security situation.
My feeling is and you suffer from the same thing. I know you. I've interviewed you. I get that you love the outdoors and camping and hunting, and we talked about your time in Colorado and all that stuff. You feel like a real person to me, but to many Americans, you're a cartoon character, right? And I think it's safe to say that your father's been made into a cartoon character as well, through the eyes of maybe half the country. Fine. My feeling is like when I'm interviewing people that I feel have been made into that character, I feel like I want to humanize them. Like I want to talk to them about stuff, not necessarily policy, but like, tell me about your past. Tell me about your schedule. Tell me what shows you like. You know what I'm saying? Like a more human approach to an interview. Does that make sense?
I do. I think I see where you're going. I mean, are you sort of asking what you'd sort of be able to ask him about to sort of get some of that?
Yeah, like the first thing that popped in my head is I don't know what his schedule is. Like everyone says he sleeps 4 hours a night. Does that mean he goes to bed at midnight and wakes up at 4? Like what is that? How's that?
I think it's just not a lot of consecutive sleep. So he's either up, he's always up early. He's always been that way. I sort of remember it was sort of funny, and I don't think he'd remember this, but I remember coming out of college and you're starting to work and you're in the real world and you're early 20s. You're going out on a Saturday night and having fun, and I'd get this phone call at like 5 a.m. It's like, Don, it's Dad. Why aren't you in the office? And me being the smartass that I am, I'm like, why aren't you in the office? And the response was, I'm in the office. That's why I know that you're not here. And I'm like, that's awesome. Thanks, Dad. This is like a Saturday morning recovery, and he's calling me from the office. But listen, I think if you want to sort of see the guy sort of as he relates to sort of America and maybe understand how he's sort of been able to relate to Luke, ask him about sports. The guy's an encyclopedia. I mean, he'll remember every fight there ever was, football, baseball. I mean, he's an encyclopedia. And I think you guys probably have that in common.
And maybe a couple construction questions sprinkled in.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, no one's built more than him, so he gets that. Everyone always talks about him as a business guy, but the reality is he's a builder. It'd be nice to see some of the Democrats work together so we can do infrastructure stuff now, put Americans back to work. That's his wheelhouse, and I think that's what he'd be looking to do for the next term.
Well, what's your head on all this that's going on? Like you read polls, you hear about the polls, you hear President Trump is behind, although I feel like making up some ground in some polls. But then as we learned from the last election, maybe the polls aren't as accurate and maybe uniquely inaccurate with your father because people don't report accurately. I don't know. What's your head?
Yeah, I sort of think we're going to see a redo of 16, right? I mean, in 16, it was sort of funny. We did online polling and we did regular conventional telephone polling, right? And you would think when you go to a large enough sample set, statistics tells you should end up at basically the same result. And in these large sample sets, 10,000 plus, we got 15% better online when people were by themselves, like they would be in a voting booth. It's just, it's going to be our dirty little secret. We're just going to vote for Trump and not tell anyone. And I think when you have the climate that you have today, you see what's going on around the country, and, conservatives are getting beaten up in the streets. I just don't think that someone's going to tell. There's plenty of people who, wearing a MAGA hat and a sweatshirt, and, that will be happily tell you. But I think there's a big percentage of people that are just going to be like, you know what? I'm for this guy. He's a politician that actually delivered for me. He actually fulfilled the promises that he made on the campaign in 2016, which, you would think wouldn't be an anomaly, but in our political system, it is. Meaning we tell people what you want to hear. I mean, Joe Biden's talking about rebuilding America. He's going to do X, Y, Z. I'm saying, hey, Joe, you've been in Washington, D.C. for 50 years, half a century. Like now you're going to start rebuilding things? If Joe Biden knew how to fix anything, why didn't he tell Obama?
Brian,
why didn't he do it?
Sorry, Brian, you have a question?
I had a follow-up question about that very topic. I wondered on this very show 4 years ago, naively, how could the polls have gotten it wrong, and why people theorized that, Trump supporters didn't want to be honest with the pollsters. And I would think to myself, why would you not want to be honest just with this anonymous person who doesn't know you? Why do you think do you agree with that, first of all? And why do you think that is amongst supporters?
I do. You've sort of seen, cancel culture only goes one way. Adam, I know you've spoken a lot, obviously, with Dennis Prager and stuff about sort of the suppression of conservative thought, the cancel culture and the things that happen to conservatives. And you notice it only happens one way. If you're a conservative and you support Trump, you can get your business boycotted. You can get your yard sign stolen. You can get your house destroyed. It doesn't happen the other way because conservatives are live and let live. So if we disagree on something, that's fine. That's your prerogative. The left has weaponized that. So I just don't think that people, and certainly not all people, are going to be apt to tell some stranger on a phone that they're voting for Trump, even if they're going to, because they don't want to be lectured about nonsense that we've seen peddled from the other side.
Lectured by who, though?
By anyone. The problem is they don't know where the person's coming from. The amount of it's that whisper vote. They'll talk about their friends. I know people that have said, hey, man, I didn't even realize that I voted for Trump. I didn't even tell my wife because I was worried of what she was going to do. And it turns out she voted for Trump, too. And it was like, it's amazing that because they've vilified conservatives so much, and certainly conservatives like Trump who are outspoken, who will actually fight, not just sort of say the stuff on the stump, but actually try to effectuate those policies in D.C., it happens. It's a very real phenomenon.
Well, I'll give you a real world example because, a lot of stuff we talk about, polls and stuff, can be tough to sort of wrap your head around. But like I said, I have an ongoing experiment in my home, which is I have 14-year-old twins, and one of them loves Trump and the other one hates Trump. And we don't talk to the one who hates Trump about being careful and kind of minding their P's and Q's. Like, be careful what you say in a classroom or in a situation or amongst us, whatever. Natalia gets no coaching. Sonny does get a lot of be careful what you say and where you say it, because you can turn a group against it. Now, I live in California, and maybe if I lived in Montana, we'd be flipping the script. I don't know. But I live in a pretty conservative neighborhood, and he still kind of gets the speech of just keep your mouth shut. Sorry.
Correct. Listen, even in Montana, even in Texas, even in places that run conservative, again, conservatives aren't going after someone for having an opposing view. They'll have that argument. That's why people have said to me, and I'm sure they've said it to you, as the stuff you've done with Dennis, well, why don't you start conservative Twitter? It's like, I don't want conservative Twitter. I don't want to be in an echo chamber. I actually want to compare my ideas with others, and may the best idea win. I just don't want to be on that platform where if I've built my platform over 10, 15 years on a platform, someone with 3 followers actually is getting boosted and I'm penalized and I'm on an uneven playing field. That's ridiculous. And that's what's happened across the board.
Brian?
Can I ask a quick follow-up, Adam, only because Don, you meant, should I call you Don or Donald or Donnie?
Yeah, Don's fine.
Don, you mentioned cancel culture, and I'm glad you brought that up because you put on Facebook back in April, quote, cancel culture is horrifying. I agree with you, and I think everyone on this show right now agrees with you. Cancel culture is terrible. Like the idea that you would have this retribution or this revenge against someone who had like a different opinion than you is abhorrent, and that's a bad part of our culture. However, your dad made news today with the Goodyear thing because they had what turned out to be not exactly right, but a policy he didn't agree with, and he called for a boycott. It strikes me that maybe your dad is the tip of the spear of this cancel culture. And I know that it's much more widespread amongst a different group, but how do you reconcile those two things? Because this is literally like, retribution for having a policy or opinion that is different that I don't agree with.
Well, it's not really an opinion that's different. Don't forget, they said, hey, if you want to wear a BLM shirt, which is a Marxist organization, no one's arguing against the concept of Black Lives Matter. That's ridiculous. Of course they matter. But BLM as itself, as an anarchist at this point, Marxist organization in their own credo, it's okay for you to be a BLM supporter. But if you're a Trump supporter, you can't show up at work. If I show up in a MAGA hat, I risk getting fired. If someone else shows up in a BLM shirt and I complain about it, I'll probably get fired. So it's not fair. So the reality is this, and I get what your point, because I do see the hypocrisy. But at a certain point, when it has been so lopsided, conservatives just have to fight back. We have to start playing the game the way the other side is. Every day you read about another business that's being boycotted, another business that's being canceled. It's always the conservative business that's canceled. Honestly, at this point, if they're going to keep doing it and they're not going to change, maybe we just have to play their own game, because unfortunately the general mantra of conservatism, of live and let live, it hasn't gotten us anywhere in 50 years. We've been live and let live while the other side has trampled over those things. They've taken over academia. They've taken over education. We say, oh, let's live and let live. It hasn't worked. So the reality is, as long as that other side is doing that, you're almost going to have to combat it. Otherwise, you're going to keep ceding ground as they've done for 5 decades.
Yeah, my head on it is, and then Gina has a follow-up as well. My head on it is, if you run a company like Goodyear, or could be any company, could be Michelin, could be
Hobby Lobby. I don't see a difference. Like if Hobby Lobby doesn't want to provide, birth control, don't work for them. That's their policy.
Well, I don't think it's quite the same thing with saying you can wear this or I won't provide that. They'll provide birth control, but not this kind of birth control. So it's a little more nuanced. But what I'm saying,
one is a religious exemption, the other is total politics.
Well,
right?
All right. So one's religious.
There.
All right. So what I'm saying is this: I feel like if I have a policy, and my policy is wear whatever you want, then that's fine. Or my policy could be, I don't want anything that has the perception of a political message to it. So no Black Lives Matter and no MAGA hats. But my problem comes, and I don't know if this is true, but if the company then is sort of yes to Black Lives Matter, but no to MAGA hats, it's still their company. It's still their prerogative. But to me, now you're kind of, you're now deciding, you're now making a political statement, which I guess is your prerogative as well. It seemed to me that either wear whatever you want or we have a policy of no political oriented garb. That seems consistent. What I do is, but you're a company and you can do what you want. Yes.
What I do is I'd ask you, what do you think would happen to Goodyear or any other company today if they said there's no BLM gear allowed, but you're allowed to wear MAGA hats? If they put out a letter to all of their employees, the opposite letter of what they put out, where they reversed the sort of politics and said, we forbid you from showing up in a BLM shirt, but we're okay with you showing up in a MAGA hat. What do you think would happen, guys?
I think it would
be bad.
Hilarity would ensue.
It'd be bad. The internet would melt down. Yes.
It would. The media would be talking about it for weeks and months on end. That's what I'm saying. It only goes one way, generally speaking. So, again, I agree with. I don't like cancel culture. I don't want part of our society. But as long as the other side continues to do this, they continue to push it, they jam it down to our throats, eventually you actually have to fight back, guys. You can't just roll over and die because the other side would like you to. And they've sort of taken advantage of our general propensity to do that.
Gina, you had a question?
Good question. Yeah, specifically about that. Because I take your point for sure in terms of, companies and things on this broad spectrum and frankly, polite society. Point well taken. And I can, of course, only speak to this specifically because of my gender and all that. But I do notice when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to social media, there are certain mobs that are vicious to women, vicious, brutal, terrifying to some. And, if you go and you click on their page, the only thing, not the first thing, but the only thing you see is a MAGA symbol and an American flag, as though that's been a co-opted symbol that we all can't share because we're all happy to be here. So is there any way you could sort of speak to that? And I don't know, would you have anything to say to people who think that that's the way to go about a political discourse?
Well, listen, I think a lot of that stuff is done. You see that, sort of the anarchists showing up wearing MAGA gear to make it look like it's actually, MAGA people when it's not. So I do believe there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I mean, no one is around more MAGA people than me, probably.
Sure. I just mean on social media.
I travel around, again, like I said, on social media where everyone can pretend to be something they're not. So, I don't know if that's real or if it's not. I follow most of the big MAGA accounts. They follow me, and I have not seen any of that, frankly.
Right, and that's what I mean, not the big accounts.
Yeah, but again,
the individuals.
But do you know that person is really a MAGA supporter?
I don't know what they really are. I don't know what they really are, but I know what they're saying. I know how they're attacking, and I know how they're dehumanizing, but I don't know who they are.
Correct. So my point is that
I know what they're showing. I know what they're showing on social media.
Correct, but they could be a leftist pretending to be a MAGA person to give those people a bad name just as easily as anything. That's the problem. I mean, I can put up a tweet right now, and in 5 seconds, before someone could read the tweet, there'll be 30 comments tearing me down. Trust me, no one's taken more heat on social media probably than me, because I am willing to engage and put myself out there. So before they could read a tweet, there'll be 30 negative tweets that are bots set up to respond to me, to be able to distract from the message, to stop people from seeing that and populating a popular response to a tweet that gets a lot of liking. Again, if we're talking social media, how many liberals, and I mean radical liberals, have you ever heard of getting thrown off social media?
Yeah, I can't. Zero? I don't know. Yeah,
none. How many conservatives have you heard about getting thrown off? And I don't mean conservatives that are doing really bad things. I mean conservatives that are just speaking common sense conservative vernacular, putting it out there. Because I know, Adam, you've seen it. I sure know that Dennis Prager and PragerU has been thrown off numerous times. They've been censored. They've been demonetized. But leftist organizations are frankly pushed and built up. So, the social media platform, while it may be real what you're seeing, I don't see it. I'm as involved on our side as anyone. I've been the one I've been thrown off Twitter. I was thrown off Twitter 10 days ago.
Well, and to your point, I'm not even taking a side. I'm just saying gender specifically. And let's say that you're 99.9% right, and these are all created by leftist anarchists. If there's one guy out there who truly believes in the message and may be distorting the message and thinks the best way to go about it is to attack and terrify women, do you have anything to say to somebody like that?
He disagrees with it. That's easy.
So it doesn't exist. That was my question.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't not exist. I think the problem.
You want to see real chauvinism? Look at a post that my sister puts up. Okay, Ivanka, who's an incredibly articulate, incredibly intelligent woman, very accomplished in life, done a lot. Watch what the leftists say to her when she makes a post. Do yourself a favor. Do it, because it's not a one-way street.
Oh, I follow her.
I'm trying not to be I don't mean to be a douche, Gina, but what I'm saying is we're way too much on both sides where there is like an example of this or an example of that. I've always kind of felt that way, where it's like, I want school choice. I think parents should stay together. I think parents should raise their kids. I know a single mother who has a son who's a doctor in the Navy now. And I always go, yes, okay, it is. I mean, it's like there's always going to be... There's always the outliers. There's definitely a fucking horrible person on the right, and there's a horrible person on the left, and they're doing things that no sane person who is either on the right or on the left condone. And I always think it's kind of folly going down that road, unless it's a large group. Yes, sorry.
I hate all horrible people equally, Adam, whether they're right or left.
I think we can all agree on that.
So yeah, we can. I mean, I'm not trying to cut you off or be douchey, but what I'm saying is like, there's so many people and there's so many examples of so many bad actors, right and left, that it's, unless it gets to a point where it's a sort of a majority or even a small minority that actually gets into some double digits and stuff like that, I'm just going to keep walking because there's so many examples on both sides. I wanted to get your take, Don Jr. I'll play you a tape that I was sitting with Mark Garagos, attorney Mark Garagos, who's a very interesting guy because he's very he's a Democrat, but he's rip shit pissed at the governor and
but he's rich. Just say he's
rich. He's rip shit at the mayor and the governor of California and hates them both, and has been banned from going on CNN. So he's kind of finding himself in this weird zone of being, he's a soldier without a country. Essentially, is what a rich drunk soldier without a country. But I was talking to him in last year in December. We were doing our podcast together, and it was December 6th of last year. So it feels like a long time ago. And I started saying to him, my theory with the upcoming election is the chaos theory. I think the folks that would like to win and not see a second term for President Trump are going to talk a little less about specific plans and more about a general chaos that we want to end. And this is, again, December last year. We'll play the clip.
Right.
My theory of what the Democrats are doing is sort of a chaos theory. And then you carry the chaos into the eve of the election, and you get some Biden or some Buttigieg or some type going, don't you just want it to end? So that was my theory last year. And then I was watching the convention, and I think I just grabbed a couple shots of various people. I think Michelle Obama and Bill Clinton and stuff. And I started hearing the word chaos coming up a lot. Like, don't you want the chaos to end? And we'll play a couple clips that we pulled, but I started thinking, I think that's the strategy, the chaos theory.
Because whenever we look to this White House for some leadership or consolation or any semblance of steadiness, what we get instead is chaos. If we have any hope of ending this chaos, we have got to vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it.
At a time like this, the Oval Office should be a command center. Instead, it's a storm center. There's only chaos.
So I started hearing the word chaos a lot and wondered, is that a strategy? Well, obviously, I was thinking about it in December of last year, and I was thinking that would be a pretty pre-pandemic thoughts, but the chaos theory would work nicely going into the election.
Hard to imagine a world that's pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, the irony of toting out Bill Clinton to talk about the sanctity of the Oval Office is pretty amazing, even by Democrat standards today. But there's no question that they would try to do that. But don't forget, so much of the chaos that they're supposedly talking about has been created by the Democrats. For the first time in 240-something years, there was a non-peaceful transition of power where the prior administration literally tried to set up the incoming administration. Had, let's say, George Bush done that to incoming President Barack Obama, the media would be all over it. It would be the largest political scandal in American history. Now that they realize that that seems to be what happened, now that FBI agents are going to jail and pleading guilty literally today for altering emails of Trump campaign associates to push their point and to push their narrative and to push their hoax, now the media has no interest. So, this notion of chaos is sort of interesting. When you look at the failed Biden-Obama administration, you look at their economic output, the things that they were able to accomplish, there's nothing. Donald Trump, there was not a single economic metric where we weren't better off under the Trump administration, certainly prior to COVID. And honestly, if you look at many of the metrics, even now, during a global pandemic, you're still better off. Then you look to you want to see chaos? What do you think happens to the middle class when Joe Biden institutes the Biden-Sanders joint unity plan, taxing the American middle class $4 trillion? So you have the absolute privilege of paying for free health care and education for illegals. Now, You don't have the privilege of getting that for yourself, but you can pay for it for others. I mean, give me a break. The reality is this. If Joe Biden could fix anything, I think he would have done it by now.
Are you in the White House right now or somewhere around there?
No, I'm just at my place.
You wouldn't be allowed there without a tie. Come on.
Okay.
I almost never wear a tie.
What?
Tie's not my thing.
Are you going to be
I'll do it
there?
for special occasions, maybe if I'm at the White House, but no, usually not.
I'm just trying to figure out how food works over there. Donald Trump.
I'll come down and cater it for you, okay? I don't want you to go hungry during the interview.
Bring us some milk.
Grumpy, it won't be good.
Set me up.
Exactly.
Boy, if I could get your dad to do a shot of Fireball with me, I think we'd blow up the internet.
That would be fun.
Liberal Privilege is the name of the book. It'll be out September 1st. You can pre-order it now at donjr.com. Good to speak to you again, Don. Thanks for bringing it, and thanks to Gina and Brian for getting some good points across as well. I enjoy it.
Yeah, Don, I appreciate you answering the questions honestly and being very forthcoming. Thank you.
We love a spirited conversation.
Thanks.
Well, listen, when they spend 3 years trying to throw me in jail, I may go a little hotter out of the box than most people. I'm probably a little bit, high strung for that, but it's all in good fun. Thank you, guys. It was great being with you.
Thanks, Don. Take care.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like the, like I said, I always felt like a lot of these guys that are turned into sort of cartoon characters, even Dennis Prager suffers from this. Like when you get to know these guys, they're nothing like what the media sort of creates them to be, sometimes even good or bad, but mostly bad. And I like the idea that although there's disagreements with guys like Don Jr., once you get to talk to him for a little bit, he comes across as a human.
And I appreciate I asked him a challenging question. I appreciate acknowledge like there's a bit of hypocrisy there, and then he gave his side of the story. So
yeah,
honesty is all I'm looking for.
I like that too.
News with Gina. The news with Gina Grad.
Let's kick things off with some celebrity news. Cuba Gooding Jr. back in the news, being accused of rape, and the alleged victim is suing. According to the lawsuit obtained by TMZ, the woman says he coerced her to his hotel room in 2013 and assaulted her before falling asleep and allowing her to escape. Jane Doe is suing Gooding for a crime of violence based on gender and seeking damages. Now, Cuba's attorney, Mark Heller, tells TMZ, clearly this is a fabricated accusation that was never reported to the police and forms no basis for any claim at this point, with 7 years having passed. In October, Cuba pleaded guilty to several charges in sexual assault cases. More than 20 women have accused him of some sort of sexual misconduct.
Let me tell you, see, this is the danger in the nutty chick who spotted him at the club and then went over to him, I think, and sat on his lap and then sat next to him. And then he put his hand on her thigh and then she's suing him for some sort of sexual assault or whatever. Here's the problem. We don't have enough space on our hard drive to keep track of everyone and what they did exactly, especially in this news cycle. And so then when Cuba Gooding Jr. is accused of rape as we used to define it, like in the hotel room, blah, blah. Then when did you hear Cuba Gooding? Yeah, he didn't, that was his nothing burger. That was a nothing burger. No, he raped, he raped a woman. Yeah, sure. He put his hand on her thigh. Yeah. This is the danger of all the sort of stuff that we're calling this, but it's not that. So it seems to me that Cuba Gooding Jr. is, I think some of the people that we're coming down to, I think it is a combination of bad drunk and super horny. I think this guy,
It's often what it comes down to.
I think he gets really drunk and does things.
Well, a wise man once said, it was yesterday on this very show, it was you, Adam, about following the patterns. And Gina, what did you say, 20 women? Mm-hmm. I'm not convicting the man, but I'm saying, you gotta pay attention to the patterns.
I agree. But now the problem is the come up and sit on your lap at the club when you're drunk and then you put your hand on the thigh. If that's in the 20 women, then we have to start weeding them out to get to our number, because I want the go to the room number, because that's where the criminality is
Right.
to me.
The criminal
But anyway,
activity,
yeah.
Tracy Morgan and his wife Megan have both filed for divorce, and TMZ says
Oh,
the
my
split
God.
could get nasty.
You can't fire me. I quit.
All right.
Megan filed first on July 28th, and Tracy followed the next day. They have a prenup, but there are two possible road bumps for the prenup. So Tracy's seeking joint legal custody and shared time with their 7-year-old daughter, while she's demanding sole legal and physical custody. Also, Tracy wants her to stop calling herself Megan Morgan and return to her maiden name.
By the way, sole custody sounds like a 90s all-black women's group that like open for In Vogue or something.
Never going to get it. Never going to
Sole
get it.
custody,
Never going to
like-
get out. Never going to get out.
Yeah, and they're like, they all have hot bodies, but one of them has a really hot face. That's sole custody. And she broke off on her own. She's doing a solo thing now.
She's the one that does the runs in the middle of the song.
They're reuniting at the Grammys. David Wild told me.
Right.
So they announced their split last month after 5 years of marriage. He married Megan after he got the
Sole,
big settlement.
S-O-U. Sorry,
Yeah.
S-O-U-L. Sorry. Chris was
After he
writing.
got that big settlement from Walmart, which is why he got the prenup. So they got married after that.
Oh.
And then she
Free your
filed for
mind.
divorce, and then he filed for divorce the next day.
So did he get the prenup before the big payout from Walmart?
It says he married Megan after he got the settlement from Walmart, which is why he got the prenup.
Oh, okay. I love Tracy, and I've spent some time with him, but I feel like he's like paprika, which like a little bit goes a long way. You don't want it for breakfast. Like you don't want to see it in the kitchen for breakfast. You don't want it all the time.
You want a pinch, not a tablespoon.
Right. So going out and having some beers and having a good time, it's fun as shit. Like for, Crank Yankers rap party or something, you want Tracy Morgan. But I don't know if you want to wake up on a Wednesday and find him in your home with you. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of Tracy Morgan.
Well, was it Rob Schneider who said the first night he met Chris Farley? Was it Rob Schneider?
It was.
They went out to a Mexican restaurant and smash cut. Chris is up on the table with his shirt off, dancing like crazy.
Right. Also, Tracy Morgan did the move where he did the poor to rich guy move, which is the guy who grows up in the tough neighborhood, living in the projects, now becoming a billionaire move, which is all he did was buy Lamborghinis and saltwater fish tanks. Like the saltwater fish tank is I'm going to buy a bunch of brand new Ferraris and Lamborghinis, but inside your house. It's like, I must spend a ton of money, but I don't know how. I know how. I'll buy a huge fish tank for inside the house, and then outside the house, I'll drive around in brand new Lambos and Ferraris. That was, and maybe a Bugatti, I think maybe as well. Oh, there's us. Wow, there's us at Crank Yankers, Jim Florentine, Jimmy's in there. I'm in there. Tracy Morgan's in there, looking sort of normal. With this,
Is there a rule that Tracy Morgan and Jimmy Kimmel have to weigh the same collectively throughout their lives?
I don't know. And it's Spoonie
They've gone in
Love.
opposite directions.
I know. There's but collectively, I mean, when you
Yeah.
they both step on the scale
Their
at the
combined
same
weight
time.
must be the same throughout their lives.
Right. Yeah, I know because Tracy found the 25 that Jimmy lost. Also, where's that picture? Is that from a rap party?
I think so, yeah. It looks like you're at Caroline's in New York. Just
Oh,
in
we
the
are.
background,
Yeah. Looking at the checkered pattern in the back. We must have had a Caroline's rap party. I don't know. It's all a big blur. If somebody, I swear to God, if somebody came up to me,
Maybe
maybe
up fronts.
maybe it's the pandemic. I don't know. If someone came up to me and said, you were never involved with a show called Crank Yankers, I'd go, wait a minute. I think I was. And they go, no, you weren't. And I'd go, wait a minute. I thought me and Jimmy came up with that show. They go, look, I just Googled it. You're not. I'd go, okay.
Some Jedi
you
mind
insist.
trick shit.
I'd literally
Jedi
go,
mind
well, maybe I'll come up with another show one day and show you. And I would leave. And then he'd go, wait a minute. I'd go, I'm leaving. And he'd go, we're in your house. And I'd go, oh, well, then
sure?
you leave. Yeah. And then he could convince me it wasn't my house. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's a premiere
Yeah, a
party.
little foggy
That's the
brain.
premiere party in Caroline's in 03, 2.
Why'd you do it in New York?
Could have been part of upfronts. I think you told a story once where you were up front to Caroline's. No, am I wrong with that?
Again, Brian, as previously stated, I would
Brian,
never
he tried to
deny
tell
or
you.
confirm
It's a really good
anything
point.
that I've said.
It's a really good point.
But it's from May 2002. The upfronts would either be in New York or L.A., or they had them in both spots.
I just thought you
remember
told a
going to
story
those.
once about upfront being at a comedy club. That sticks in my mind.
That could work or not. Who knows?
You were there and you loved it.
Yeah, and I do know, as I've always said, that Crank Yankers was called Prank Puppets, and I was in New York with Jimmy when we were arguing with the attorneys as to why it couldn't be called Prank Puppets. Think about the innocent time that was 2001 and a half, which is we wanted to call our show
Prank was malicious.
Puppets, and they said no.
Why? I don't get it.
It opened us up to too much liability.
So this had to be before Johnny Knoxville and all those guys.
I guess it was, and I
Talk about liability.
It was an insane conversation.
Found Gold, though, I'll go. I'm on the record as saying Crank Yankers, better title.
Agreed. All right, what else we got, Gina Grant?
So a live reading of Fast Times at Ridgemont High is happening Friday to benefit Sean Penn's humanitarian organization that's helping with COVID testing and more, called CORE, C-O-R-E.
Oh, yeah.
Penn
I think he said, I interviewed him a few weeks back, and I think he said something about that.
It's here. It's happening. He's going to join Julia Roberts, Brad Pitt, Matthew McConaughey, Jennifer Aniston, Morgan Freeman, and even Jimmy Kimmel on Friday night, and Shia LaBeouf for this live reading of the 1982 classic movie in conjunction with a one-night fundraiser, which is organized by Dane Cook. But
this is a hodgepodge.
But there's news I should prepare you for, because otherwise you might be disappointed. Sean Penn will not be playing Spicoli. But Cameron Crowe and director Amy Heckerling are scheduled to give a special introduction at the beginning. It's unrehearsed. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, live streamed on Live by Live's platform, app, social channels, along with Facebook, TikTok, and Core's Facebook. And
Have they announced who's playing Spicoli?
No.
Please be Shia LaBeouf.
Well, that's the thing. He's going to be there.
That guy's Shia LaBeouf, Oscar winner before he dies.
Honey Boy is an incredible.
He's a gifted
movie.
actor.
Absolutely agree. The live stream is going to feature a donate button with all the proceeds going to CORE and Reform Alliance. So that's how Sean Penn is involved, and it's probably going to be spectacular.
If I know Hollywood, I think Will Smith and Jada Pinkett's daughter will probably play Spicoli. If I just know the way things are going in Hollywood. Also, I kind of feel like I want the old cast back. I want Judge Reinhold. I don't know if you can you get Phoebe Cates out of the house? I mean, does Phoebe Cates? I'm legitimately asking. Like, does she do things? Is she reclusive? Is she sworn off of Hollywood completely?
I think she's done acting, but I've seen pictures of her on the red carpet semi-recently. So I know she at least goes out and supports Kevin Kline's stuff.
I was going to say probably for Kevin Kline.
Huh. I just...
but I don't think she acts anymore.
She was a big deal. Would she... So I guess the question is she kind of semi-retired and cool about it, or is she kind of sworn off something? Like, there's two approaches. There's two approaches to not drinking. There's I was out of control and now I can't drink. And then there is I don't drink, which is two different people, but it's still
raise
the same.
A glass at a wedding or something.
It's the same process. No, there are guys, the aforementioned, well, we're just talking about President Trump and the aforementioned Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager doesn't drink, but it's not. He doesn't have a beef with it. He just doesn't drink. He doesn't like it. I don't even think he would drink at a wedding. And then there are people that Dr. Drew knows better, who drove their van through a preschool and blew a .70 and need to stop drinking.
Drinking's no longer advised.
Right. So
off the table.
Is Phoebe Cates not acting, or is it just not interest her?
Having done almost no research, I think I recall that she is retired from acting, but I think she's pretty game to support whatever her husband does, vis-a-vis red carpet, shit like that.
But she would do Fast Times as part for the cause, right?
I imagine so. If Cameron Crowe or Amy Heckerling asked.
So
maybe they thought they'd get more eyeballs if it was people that are still actively working, as opposed to reuniting an old crew.
I know Jennifer Aniston a bit, and she's the sweetest person in the world. But does she have to be involved in every production of everything? I mean, sweetheart, she's great. She's super friendly. She's super nice to my kids and stuff like that. But I feel like she calls her agent every day, and like she probably turns on the TV and yells at her agent, "How come I'm not on this show?" And they're like, "It's a documentary about Vietnam." I don't care. I should be going down that Ho Chi Minh Trail. Like, I just feel like she's in everything.
That's funny. Okay, I've done no research on this, but I have thoughts on it, which is, okay, she's got tons of money, right? She's got friends' money. She's good for the rest of her life, blah, blah, blah. Jennifer Aniston, to me, should, in my opinion, should be like the female Tom Hanks at this point in her career, like a younger one. Like, she's in every woman. Like, every woman can identify with her. She's not beautiful or ugly. She's just, she's attractive in a real world kind of sense. But her career choices are kind of odd. But again, I think that's more like, hey, I've got enough fucking money. I can do literally whatever I want. I can fuck around and, do this silly comedy or this whatever. I don't care. But she's like an every woman. She should be the most relatable person on earth.
Her hair's too shiny to be relatable. I could never get that kind of shine on my hair.
I agree with you on there.
She is, I think there's a sense, and I don't know, but I'll tell you this, especially if you were in a successful sitcom that's now 20 years old or whatever it is.
And the money's still coming in from your kids watching on Netflix.
Sure.
But I think there's a sense, and I understand it, I'm sort of half in show business, like there's a sense of money aside, nobody wants to be the old person from the sitcom from 20 years ago. Everyone wants to be relevant.
Sure.
There's this notion of being relevant, of like what's happening today. And part of it is doing projects and getting paid. But the other part of it is just showing up places, being involved with places. When something like this makes the rounds, does the news cycle, hey, they're redoing Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You want your name in that 8-person list. And that's what I think we're talking about here.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm looking at Max Zapata for.
Because you want more Phoebe Cates
Oh, Phoebe Cates. Yeah, I want to know.
So when her and Kevin Kline were married, they agreed to alternate their film schedules so they could take care of the kids when she became a mother. But when it was her turn to take a role, she was always too shy to take it because she thought it'd be too time-consuming. So she really just stayed home to take care of her kids.
Are they not married anymore?
I think they still are.
If you wanted to interview her, could you interview her? Because I don't feel like she does anything.
While we're looking that up,
August.
Yeah, well, I'll throw this out there again. No research, top of my head. Phoebe Cates never struck me as a powerhouse of an actress, whereas Kevin Kline is a fucking world of talent. Like that guy's bursting at the seams. I wonder if that's a nice way, what Chris just read, a nice way of sort of massaging the truth, which is Kevin Kline kept fucking getting work.
Yep.
You sound like someone who never saw Gremlins.
She's not terrible, but she's kind of disposable, right?
Brian, I'm sorry, but that scene where she's explaining why she hates Christmas.
No!
I mean, I look, you're going to have to get a snow shovel out and eat your words because that is the definition of chops.
Right.
That is in the Smithsonian right now. Every acting academy shows that during orientation. You understand?
Sometimes the answer is so obvious it escapes you.
Now you got to find the clip, Max Zapata, because that's the greatest. And it's not only the greatest acting tour de force in cinematic history, but writing as well.
This is the second time today this has happened to me because Christy, vis-a-vis a client of hers, like, are there any famous movie scenes involving oranges? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And of course, one of the most famous scenes of all time is fucking Godfather putting the orange in his mouth and then dying.
At the end.
Yeah, it's an iconic scene. Of course, it didn't come to me. I felt like a failure. Second time today.
Well, here we go.
Why would she wanted to know that?
I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
Sorry. Brian, Chris, you can find that.
Yeah, I'll find it. Hit Simply Safe. And
I will. That you have to look. You have to listen to that scene, and remember, going into that scene, we had to accomplish when you write scripts, and I've done quite a few. there's two things. Sometimes you just trying to get a laugh or trying to get something from the audience, but sometimes you just need to accomplish something. Like you go, this person hates Christmas. Why? And when that's the challenge, then you do it as quickly as you can because it's not funny or interesting, right? So you come up with something where you go, I'm Jewish and I was the only kid in my preschool and everyone made fun of me during Christmas time or something like that, right? It's pretty easy.
Yep.
So with that in mind, we'll find that scene. But first, I'll tell you about Simply Safe. Most home security companies trap you with high prices, tricky contracts, lousy customer support. There's only one that is a no-brainer, and that is Simply Safe. Everything to protect your home, an arsenal, sensors and cameras for every room, door, window, all motion detectors, all tailored specifically for your home, professional monitoring, day and night. They will reach out and ping the police or the fire department or medical professionals if necessary. No contracts, no pushy sales guys, no hidden fees, no fine print. Starts at just $15 a month. U.S. News World Report named it the best overall home security for 2020. Right, Dawson?
Head to simplysafe.com/Adam and get a free HD camera for our listeners. That's simplysafe.com/Adam to make sure they know that our show sent you.
All right.
Adam,
yes.
Before we watch this scene, can I just preface it by saying you're 100% right about those scenes where you need to establish why this character hates Christmas when it's necessary. In this movie, it's totally unnecessary. It's almost a non sequitur. Like she's like, I bet it's like another reason why I hate Christmas. Oh, really? Do tell.
Right, yeah. She didn't need to hate Christmas.
It's like that friend who's like, well, I had a hell of a day today, and they want you to ask him why.
Right. We need to know why the Grinch has a problem with it, not Phoebe Cates.
All right, here's the scene, and we're going to find out why she hates Christmas.
It was Christmas Eve. I was 9 years old. Me and Mom were decorating the tree, waiting for Dad to come home from work. A couple hours went by. Dad wasn't home. Mom called the office. No answer. Christmas Day came and went, and still nothing.
Hold on. Brian, you think Meryl Streep could pull this off?
You know what? I'm reevaluating everything they said about her versus Kevin Kline. Keep going.
Keep going.
4 or 5 days went by. Neither one of us could eat or sleep. Everything was falling apart. It was snowing outside. The house was freezing, so I went to try to light up the fire, and that's when I noticed the smell.
Silent Night just went into minor keys.
The smell?
Firemen came and broke through the chimney top, and me and Mom were expecting them to pull out a dead cat or a bird, and instead they pulled out my father.
Hold on, can I say this? If a fireman came to my house and broke through the chimney top and pulled out a sparrow, I would be pissed.
Yeah,
I'd be like, you know how much fucking masonry work this is going to cost me now because you couldn't have just leaned a coat hanger down there and fucking grabbed a bird?
Well, here's your mouse. Here's the problem.
Yeah, and also, conversely, or to be fair, if I'm the fire department and you called me because you thought you had a squirrel or sparrow on Christmas, I'd go, hey, listen, there's a fucking barn on fire up the street now. Do you mind? We're busy. But anyway, what'd they find?
He was dressed in a Santa Claus suit. He'd been climbing down the chimney on Christmas Eve, his arms loaded with presents. He was going to surprise us. He slipped and broke his neck. Died instantly.
How would you know?
That's a good point.
And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
Really?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
For all the kids listening.
I had a friend tell me at school in the 3rd grade, but, to each their own.
That's like the equivalent of Seinfeld. That's the tractor story?
Well, a couple things that always bug me about that from a writing standpoint, which is, did the mom know about this? And then were you guys like upstairs in your bed and he was going to come down through the chimney alone with no witnesses?
What's the point?
Yeah, she went to bed alone, presumably, obviously. And at some point, he met his fate.
Right. So And then what's the mom? You think about the mom. The mom's like, where's Bert? I don't know. I'm going to bed.
Yeah, she called the office.
Yes. I mean, who was he going to surprise in the middle of the night if no one is there to witness Santa coming down the chimney? I mean, there are other ways to present your presence, right? You could just go out.
With nobody there.
Just go out in your bathrobe and a boner and put him out and go back to bed, right?
It sounds like he was having some sort of a manic episode that they don't touch on and should.
Oh, he was mentally ill.
Yeah.
That's probably
this explains a lot.
Probably in the director's cut. But this
Joe
guy
Dante's director's
was
cut?
an ambitious dad where he literally was crawling down it. And by the way, it's filled with creosote and soot, and it's a mess. And there's also a fire shelf. You can't get through. It's not like a straight line down.
Well, now you tell him.
And also, if you slip, according to you in your chimney, if your chimney is basically a garbage chute, which it isn't, your chimney has a firebox and a fire shelf. Like if you go up and look in your chimney, you'll see like a thin crevasse where it goes up. It's not just wide open. Like you couldn't just look up and see daylight through the bottom of your chimney. But if in fact that is the chimney that he was crawling down to pop into the fireplace and surprise everyone, then when you slip and break your neck, you end up on a Duraflame log at the bottom of the chimney in the fireplace. Like you are discovered when they come downstairs.
Yeah.
I have so many problems from a building standpoint, from a code standpoint, from a creative writing standpoint. They're just lucky I wasn't in the room when they were laying down this idea. All right. Let's bring it home, Gina Grad.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
That was the news with Gina Grad.